captain of the Black Cat Pirates.
What is going on, everyone? Bruce from What's Popping here, and we are back with another incredibly exciting episode. Now, our guest today, if you were at ComicCon Cape Town, you may have seen him. You may have seen him in a very, very small show called One Piece, the live-action version. We have Captain Kuro himself, Alexander Maniatis, joining us today. Alex, how are you doing?
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm great, thank you. How are you?
Oh, very, very well, thanks. It's really, really awesome to have a chance to chat to you. Thank you so much for joining us. We missed seeing you at ComicCon Cape Town. How was that event?
ComicCon Cape Town was absolutely phenomenal. It blew my mind. I didn't expect anything in specifically, but I know that I didn't expect that, and it was so magical. That sense of community, the love that these fans have for these different shows and animes. I was really moved by it.
Yeah, it was a really awesome show. I've been covering Comic Con for a couple of years now, and just to see all you guys on the stage and to know that it was a fully South African cast that we were seeing in front of us was just so exciting. We've had so many international guests come through, and to see the level of excitement, seeing that camaraderie with all of you guys on stage and the play back and forth. And if I'm not mistaken, it was the first time a lot of you guys were actually together because of the way it was filmed.
A lot of us, yes. So myself, Celeste, Albert, Bianca, so we worked quite closely during the prep for the show, and Brett included. But a lot of the other actors and actresses, that was the first time that we met them, was on stage, or well,
all together there
in the green room, all together.
In the green room. No, awesome. And then obviously the photo ops and all that kind of thing as well. I noticed you brought a little prop with you for some of those photos. What is the fan reaction to seeing Captain Kuro with the glasses, of course, and of course the I don't know what to call them. I want to call them Wolverine claws. What is the fan reaction to meeting you and getting to take photos, not just with Alex, but with Captain Kuro?
It was such a new layer to the job for me as well. I think I don't want to generalize. I'm just talking from my experience as an actor within South Africa. I've never had the experience, for example, like something like Comic-Con, where you get to meet fans on that level. So it was such a new layer for me. And I think, to what I said in one of the interview questions at Comic-Con is that, we grew up watching certain shows. For me, that show was Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And there's a lot of emotional attachment to that show because you grow up with these characters. And my best friend and I absolutely love that show. And, so as a fan of a show, you're sort of like on this side of the line. But One Piece gave that opportunity to be on the other side of that, and to be part of this amazing experience. And meeting fans, I was quite moved by it, to be quite honest. There was one of the fans came over with his wife, and I mean, this is a grown man, and he started crying when we met, and then I started crying, and I remember asking him and was like, "Can I give you a hug?" And he was like, "Yes, please." And so I gave him a hug, and I was like, "Well, I just want to thank you because you also, this is a dream come true for me, experiencing all of this." So I was quite moved by it. The fans were absolutely lovely, and to sort of like bring a little bit of that magic with me that I experienced whilst filming. For example, the gloves, which were the practice gloves that I was gifted, and I had.
So those
one of
aren't
the
theft from set. That didn't increase your bounty anymore. Taking those on set.
That was no theft. That was no theft. It was a gift from the team, and I had I think it was one of the rehearsal jackets as well with me.
That's what I love about Comic-Con, because like you say, we do kind of experience a lot of these shows and this pop culture on different sides. You feel very disconnected from it. And what is so cool, and since we started having Comic-Cons, was that it suddenly feels so much closer to you. You can actually reach out and meet that person, tell the actor how much that role meant to you. And for you guys as well to actually have feedback with the fans. But what's so unique about this was seeing think it was, I mean, a stage full. I think it was nine actors on stage that were all South
Yeah.
African. Was just so special for me, as someone who's been covering the cons for a long time. But let's move on to sort of to One Piece. That's what everyone wants to hear about, of course. I know you've done a lot more than that, but everyone wants to chat about One Piece. Um, the auditioning process. What is something like that like as a South African actor going for an international role? Obviously, you have a very we have a very definable accent. I think that's something that a lot of people try and emulate overseas. They're trying to get the South African accent right
Yeah.
and never getting it quite right. What a lot of people don't acknowledge, I think, is how difficult it is for us to cover that accent sometimes. So maybe you could just tell us a bit about what it's like auditioning for a role that you're not quite sure what it is, and you're kind of taking swings to try and get noticed in that, but you don't know what the role is. You have an inkling of what the production is. You got to bring your own Alexness to it, but you also need to sort of do some research. And what is it kind of like going for something where you're not quite sure what the role is going to be?
So I think, like everybody knows, when we got the first brief and the first script, it was called Project Panda. The characters had different names. The script was specifically written for these little audition scenes. Um, and when my agent sent through the script and they were like, would you like to audition for this? And I read through it and I was like, hell yeah, this is, it seems like a complex character. There's a duality to him, which I would love to take on. Obviously, not knowing the full scope of it. And I guess at that stage, it was just like taking any script that you would get, if they don't, because sometimes with these auditions, they don't reveal or give a lot away. So you would get a little extract and just see if you can capture the essence of this character without knowing, a lot of what's going on and what's happening. So I guess for me, it was just trying to find the duality when I did my first audition. And funnily enough, when I read the character, I think it probably because he was a butler. I thought, it would be fun doing it in a British accent. I sort of like tried doing it in an American accent, but there was something with that British accent that just helped to ease in that character, specifically the posture, the way that he carried himself. Um, and my audition process was over 6 months, spanned over 6 months. And I think it was only after the second or the third, if I'm not mistaken, that I found out that it was One Piece. And then I immediately jumped on, to the internet and was like, Googled the character Captain Kuro, which helped a lot.
It does help. That's something I also wanted to ask you about. Was obviously you sort of mentioned then knowing it was a butler gave you the foundation for that voice. But with something like One Piece, which has got such a huge fan following, it's got so much going on. There's so many inspiration sources to pull from. You have the manga, you have the anime, you have the dubbed anime. How do you go about making sure that you're sort of bringing your own Alexness, as I would say, to the role, while still paying homage to that, and sort of making sure that that's what comes through on screen? Because for me, like I said, I never watched the anime, and seeing you open the door first, and I was like, hey, that's Alex. I saw him on stage at Comic Con. I was like, wait, that doesn't quite look like Alex. But there's definitely for me that was really cool because I immediately picked up from the way you were playing him that there was a duality to him. But One Piece fans are going to see you and go, Captain Kuro, he was teased 3 episodes ago in the suitcase or in the briefcase that was open. That's him. How do you find a way of kind of pleasing both? Because I think that's what you did. You're recognizable enough to other fans who are from the manga and the anime. But as someone who's watching for the first time, I was like, "This is a creepy butler dude," and I fell in love with the character that way.
Well, thank you, first of all. Well, in trying, to prepare for the character, obviously there was a lot of source material with the anime and the manga. Um, but in my opinion, as an actor, you are this vessel, and you can never quite get rid of who you are as a person. You are the base of everything that you take on. Um, I decided to work with a therapist, with a psychiatrist, to develop the character. So to go to therapy essentially as Captain Kuro. Um, And I think it was about 2.5 months, about 3 months that I went, yes, that I went to therapy as Captain Kuro, just to sort of like find where he essentially sits within me, because you need to understand this character and where the voice fits, where the feelings sort of like sit within you, and the way that he moves, because he had quite a particular way of walking that killed my back the moment I stepped out of character, I remember. um, and Bianca was so sweet to give me with a massage when when we wrapped. She was like, here you go, here's a massage.
Yeah.
But
Oh, we said give some massage. I thought she gave you a
no, no,
massage,
no,
like
no.
off,
She
like
gave me a
you walked
voucher.
in and she was like, "You need help."
She was like, here's a voucher. Go for a massage.
Yeah,
Um,
before season 2, please.
before.
Yep.
And yeah, I think it was using references that I also understood and that resonated with me. And weirdly enough, one of the films that I have a lot of emotional attachment to as a child growing up was Hocus Pocus. And I used Winifred Sanderson as a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of Freddy Krueger as well, because I'm a child of the '80s, and I grew up with Freddy Krueger. My best friend Ruan was obsessed with Freddy Krueger, and that sort of like got me into it as well. So I definitely used a little bit of that. Um, but essentially I had to find Captain Kuro. The fandom of One Piece is so big, and obviously when I found out what it was and what we would be working on, um, the anxiety took over for a moment. Just like, oh my gosh, can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do justice to this iconic character? And the repercussions that if you didn't portray this character in the way that he should have been, there would be a lot of like negative waves coming towards
Yeah.
you, which luckily, thank God,
No, no,
uh,
no, and it's difficult because, especially like you say, not just the fact that it's a huge fan base. There seems to have been a massive sort of fan movement against a lot of live action adaptations. So I feel like
yes,
you guys had that to go up against as well.
yes,
And thankfully, that has not been the case. It seems to have been very well received across the board. I loved it, of course, as someone who wasn't big on the anime. It's now getting me to me. I'm going the other way. I start with the live action. I'll probably go back and watch the anime. And
anime.
as you mentioned, he's a very you were drawn to the duality of him as a character, and he is a very layered character, and you sort of see those layers coming off as his time on the show progresses. You obviously aren't shooting all of those scenes in sequence,
No.
right? So you might be shooting the intro scene first, and then you're doing a fight scene, or however the shooting schedule works. How did you find a way to shift gears as an actor between Kuro when we first meet him and Kuro where he's kind of unhinged at the end, to maintain that believability? Because when you first meet him, I mean, we got to kind of like him. Kaya likes him,
Yeah.
so we've got to like him as well. And by the time at the end, we're like, whoa, this guy's a creep. How do you shift gears and go back and forth when you're not shooting in sequence?
So I remember the first scene that we filmed, my day one, we filmed the killing Mary scene.
So,
And I remember on my way to studio, to the set, I had the biggest anxiety attack, because I sometimes I struggle with the imposter syndrome, and definitely on our way to set, being between all these ships that are so huge, and the reality of how big this show is actually hits you right in the face. Um, and I had to find, I think, and I was grateful for the therapy that I had as Kuro, because there was a method that I used to get into character right before we stepped onto set, and then obviously stepping out of the character afterwards. But during filming in a day, like I would remember that sometimes there would be times that I wouldn't break character, so I wouldn't sit down, I wouldn't eat, especially no eating. I wouldn't go to the loo. I just kept pacing up and down to keep that rhythm of the character. And to answer your question with like, how did I sort of like keep track of, you know, shooting out of sequence? Um, I used a technique called the Chubbuck technique, where obviously the first time when you get your script, you analyze it, and you break up each scene. Um, where am I coming from? Where am I going to? So I would have that, those notes with me, or prepare them the night before to see, okay, cool, today we're shooting scene so and so and so. This is where he comes from. This is where he's going. This is his mental state at the moment, or his objective. So that really helped a lot, to sort of like keep track of where I'm going and, where I just came from.
Yeah, so sort of compartmentalizing each scene into a this is where I'm going, this
Yeah.
is where I'm starting, this is where I'm finishing.
Yes.
Okay, that's really interesting for me because my limited acting experience is voice acting, where you sort of do dubbing, right? So you just you're doing the whole episode as
Yeah.
it goes. You go from beginning to end. You have the luxury of, I know what my character's doing now, and oh, okay, he's going up a couple of notches. I'll follow him. He goes down a bit. I'll follow him. But I've always been fascinated by, especially with the character who is, there's a lot going on in Kuro's head, master of plans, and there's so much going on to turn it on and turn it off, especially, I mean, with, like you say, getting in and out of character is something I've always been very fascinated with and spoken to a few actors about, because it's always the nicest people that play these dark roles and these crazy roles. And I always wonder, how do you go home at the end of the day and turn that off? But there's another level to that, which is, how do you sort of move back and forth within a day? On that note, sort of moving back and forth, you obviously had to move between these really poised sequences all the way to his fight sequences.
Yes.
I know you have experience on shows like Warrior and that. What was it like creating a realistic fight style for him, out of the anime onto the live action scene?
Well, first of all, I want to thank the stunt team, who were absolutely phenomenal, and they had patience, man. Let me tell you, they had a lot of patience with me because I'm so technical. My brain needs to understand the movement first, and it needs to connect the dots, and then my body will follow. So they were really, really patient with me. We went over it, I think it was about 2.5 months that we had prep time going over this. I think for the first month and a half, it was basically, first 2 months, basically, it was just myself with a team, just going over certain movements, getting certain basic movements down. And then Iñaki came in later because they also did that with him separately. And then it was sort of like a dance, choreographing a dance, taking it extremely slow in the beginning, and then sort of like speeding it up as you get comfortable with each other. And then obviously the added blades, so that I don't hurt the star of the show, which actually happened, I think, in our second rehearsal together, where Kira comes down, stab, 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 as Luffy rolls. And luckily, the rehearsal gloves, plastic, but quite hard, so you could actually still injure
Hard enough.
somebody. Yeah, you could really injure somebody with that. And I think I scraped his leg at one stage, and I felt so bad.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh my god, they're gonna fire me!"
No, I love the fighting, and there was so much about it. I think, like you say, you're a big fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I definitely got some vampire vibes from the way he moved. Sort of. Everyone hates Twilight, but that fast sort of movement, that quick
Yes.
here in out, it was very kind of like very vampire like. I definitely got those vibes coming through the whole time, and we're really excited to see. I'm so glad Kira didn't die. That's all I'm going
Me
to say.
too.
He didn't
Me
die.
too.
We saw you going off on a robot. So we do hope that we get to see him again, and hopefully we get to see you on screen in Kira in the near future again. As a South African, just shifting gears, working on this massive international production. I know you studied in Pretoria, so just down the road from me. Yeah, I'm in Pretoria as well now. Um, so Pretoria Boyki, on things like Seven de Laan and shows that a lot of us recognize, and making a big step up to this production. What would you say to someone who is at the moment an extra on Seven Alarm and wanting to find their way into acting as a career?
Yeah, it's such a loaded question in the sense that,
Yeah.
I think the entertainment industry is not one of the easiest industries, if I'm, quite frank with you about that. Um, and there are times where you struggle mentally because it's so challenging, to sort of like get that opportunity where you go, okay, cool. Well, the next one will be my breakthrough. The next one will be my breakthrough, or hopefully this character will be my breakthrough. Um, and it was a question in that somebody asked me at Comic Con as well, and I'm going to echo that. First of all, I think if this is really something that that you want to go for, whether you are an extra on Seven Delan or you have this dream of becoming an actor, um, I would say really cherish and nurture the relationships in your life. Um, family members, a partner, um, friends, because those are the people that will help you essentially, mentally and carry you through these tougher times because it is a roller coaster, even if I'm quite frank, coming off One Piece, the release of One Piece, which is something that I dreamt about, as a little boy, to be on a set like that and to be able to have the time to prepare for a character and then have this amazing, team of people that you get to work with. That was a dream come true. But, sometimes the reality after that is, you have to,
You're always unemployed as an
you're
actor. In
always
between jobs, you're
unemployed.
consistently unemployed.
You're always
Yeah.
unemployed,
Yeah.
waiting for that next thing to come in or to, okay, cool, here's an audition. And hopefully this will take me to the next level. Because it always feels like you're fighting to get to the next level. Where in my experience, and I don't mean to sound pessimistic, you're always technically at the same level. Um, unless you're somebody like Tom Cruise or Brad Pitt, where people come to you and go, cool, we've got this character in mind and we think, you need to play it, which is phenomenal. And I think that is the dream, to sort of like reach that. But it takes years. It takes a lot of dedication and hard work and sometimes tears and sweat. They make sure, if you can, therapy, make sure that you have a good
Yeah.
therapist to help you through this, and support system.
Yeah.
And then also ask yourself, why are you doing this? Is it for
Yeah.
the fame? Is it for the money? Is it for the art of, the love of storytelling? And because my journey changed throughout, if I look back at a younger version of myself when I started studying, I've always had a love, for telling stories and entertaining people. And as you get older, you ask yourself, but why do I have that need? And somewhere in there in my 20s, there were also this dream of becoming famous and, making a lot of money. But then reality kicks in and you realize that it's not that. You could, year after year after year, role after role, you could go like, oh, but why am I not reaching this? This goal, this dream, this picture of what I have in mind. And the reality of it is sometimes so different. So to remind yourself, why are you doing this? I remind myself every day, oh, I have to. I had a huge existential crisis at the beginning of the year and go like, oh my God, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this to my mental health, to my relationships, to myself? And I had to take a brief moment to remind myself. And weirdly enough, Comic-Con happened right after that. And it was so moving to me. Sorry, I know I'm jumping between certain.
No, please.
But it was so moving to meet people and to go, because it becomes such a
Mhm.
all-consuming industry. It's all about surviving essentially and doing what you love doing. But it's all very about me, 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 me in that
Mhm.
moment, whether that be for
Mhm.
surviving, whether that be to get to the next job. But then Comic-Con came, and I got to meet the fans, and how much the show, how much these characters, it gets me all emotional thinking about it,
Yeah.
how much it meant, to people, and to go like, that's why I love doing this, because I learned so much about myself through playing these characters, and that's
Mhm.
how I sort of like fell in love again with my work. But only much later as an adult, it was sort of like my mid 30s, where I got to play a character, Daniel, in a movie called Love, Lies, and
Mhm.
Hybrids, and I
Mhm.
fell in love with the craft again, because I learned so
Mhm.
much about my own circumstances, my own struggles at the time as an individual through playing this character. And it was the same with Kuro, the duality of that, where I was like, because I'm not a very angry person, I'm not a very aggressive person, but through playing Kuro and going through, on that journey, specifically with
Mhm.
the therapist, I realized, like, hey, there's a lot of stuff that you need to deal with still. And if you don't deal with it, you could end up like this man being
Yeah.
rageful. And yeah, so sorry, I just bring
Yeah.
it back to your original.
No.
I think
It's
remind yourself,
yeah.
of why you are doing this. And if it
Yeah.
is for the love of telling stories, then I would say, start, if it's writing your own stories, teaming up with people who are, writers, and just create. And then hopefully there will be people that resonate with it, and you could make a living out of it.
Yeah. That's I think that is not just great acting advice, that's just good general life advice. Is that support structure, man. Those relationships. We all, whatever we're doing in our lives, if you're involved in academia, if you're involved in business, if you're an actor, you do everything piles on top of you and it becomes me, 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 me. And you need that we. You need that us. You can't that's something I think must be so difficult is as an actor you a lot of times I think you're forced to be very selfish because you need to focus in a very specific way and you need to look at yourself in a lot of different ways to take on a role. And then like you say, something like Comic Con comes along and you get a chance for that me to turn into a we.
Mm,
And that period, those periods throughout the year where we have these touchstone points, I think we all go through these very difficult times, and that's what the like you mentioning the importance of relationships is
yeah,
to have that tribe of people that you can lean on, and that at the end of the day, if you don't get that role, if you don't get that paper published, if you don't get that business deal, it's not the end of the
yeah.
world. There will be another one. It wasn't for you,
It wasn't.
and if you have that support structure, then you feel at the end of the day like I can bounce back. I
Yes.
can go to that next audition. I can make that next proposal. I can do that next thing. So I love that, man. It's such awesome advice. I think in a general sense to look at why you're doing whatever it is that you're doing
Yeah.
because we as we do things that challenge us, I think we all faced every day with that question. If you're not doing something that challenges you, you'll never ask yourself why am I doing this.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to hear. And the more people I speak to and the more time I spend chatting to people in different careers and professions, I find that everyone has got such similar struggles. It's just the environment that changes,
Yes.
and if you can find something that you love and you stick with it, that's the dream.
Yeah, because I think the thought is that if you find something that you love, there'll be no struggles. It'll be easy because it's something that you love. But that's not true. There will be lots of bumps and hurdles that you would need to cross, or rivers that you would need to cross. Um, but is if you have that clear vision of, and why am I doing this? If you have that, then it's easier, not easy, easier to cross those hurdles, or those mountains sometimes.
If you have the why, it's easier to find the how.
Yes,
I think,
there's it.
like you said, it's not easy, but it's easier.
Easier.
Alex, I honestly I could chat to you all night. I know you've had a very long day. Thank you so much for joining us on the show and sharing a bit about your time and just some advice for all of us out here doing different things. And I appreciate you so much. Thank you for your time. We hope to see you again.
Oh,
We'll see you on our screens hopefully very soon.
I need to thank you. Thank you for having me, for giving me the opportunity to chat with you. And seriously, if if there's ever another topic that you would want to discuss about One Piece or the process, please, I'm here to chat. I love this.
I'd love to. Thank you so much, Alex. This has been absolutely amazing. We appreciate you so much, and we will hopefully see you again on the show.
Thank you for having me, and I appreciate you.